reseated.
SpaceX copies that report. Good fix.
So this was something we knew might happen. And Sarah,
between 28 and 27.
Copy.
the crew trained on exactly what to do in this scenario. Just pop it back in.
And
Reseat
one
it.
final between 19 and 18. That might be best reseated with hatch closure.
SpaceX copies. Can you repeat the location?
After EVA complete. Between 19 and 18.
All right, copy. I'll track that and ask again when you're ingress.
Copy. EV2 is proceeding with egress.
Super exciting to see this. Our fellow SpaceXer,
Yeah.
Sarah Gillis, now about to make her spacewalk.
EV1, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Like we mentioned, Sarah will be performing the same set of mobility tests. So we will do the same. Try to stand by and listen to those comms.
I mean, I said it before, a lot of us work here because we want to do this.
All right, stepping into test matrix 1 for single-handed mobility.
Really cool to see one of our own out there. That's awesome.
And EV2 for awareness, we're watching from the nose cone.
And copy all. I would say in all three translation axes, I'm having certainly cross-coupled movements. Forward, back, I am inducing a bit of a roll. Similarly with left, right, and up, down, a bit of a pitch, but all are achievable rating of 3. Yaw is a 3. Roll is a 4. And pitch is a 3. Source for left hand. Stepping into vertical translation.
SpaceX copies. And EV2 for awareness, we're tracking an ingress time at O2 flow, 5-9 minutes.
Copy, 5-9 minutes. Horizontal bars are definitely preferred. And I'm adequately able to stabilize my body with single-hand disturbances. Clear for both left and right. Stepping into max reach, do you have visual?
Affirm, we have visual on the nose cone.
Copy from bar 4 to bar 2, from top down. And similar reach from bar 2 up to bar 4.
SpaceX copies reach.
And EVA test matrix 1 complete. Seat pressure 5.25, 33.8 Celsius, 37% humidity.
SpaceX copies HUD readout and test matrix 1 complete.
Copy, stepping into test matrix 2.
Like we mentioned before, views going in and out due to those ground station coverage gaps.
Yeah, we comms are
Some of the same.
Comms are through satellites, but we've got ground stations for video on Dragon. As you can see in the tracker, we just flew over New Zealand. We're about to go right over the middle of the Pacific. No ground stations in the middle of the Pacific.
Forward are actually pretty good.
We're hearing the voice of mission specialist Sarah Gillis, our fellow SpaceXer on her spacewalk.
She's got about a minute left, and then she's going to start heading inside. And
see if it was a little more work, I can actually get between almost bar 1 and bar 4 on max reach.
SpaceX copies.
and you could see the Earth dark, and we flew into like an orbital.
All right, and test matrix to kind of combine them, so we'll call that complete. Sea pressure 5.27, 38% humidity, 33.7 Celsius.
SpaceX copies, matrix complete, and HUD readout.
Stepping into hands-free demo. I'm able to engage and disengage my feet.
Copy that, EV2. And once you are able to engage, disengage, we'll actually have you start ingress. We're just over 5-9 minutes O2 flow.
Copy. With that, EV2 is proceeding with ingress. Pre-check for ingress.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Good.
14 good. Copy. Coming on in.
All right, and just like that, Sarah's going to start making her way in. Check those hatch seals again.
SpaceX copies on striker plates. And EV2, I have one more ask for the hatch, if you can check that out as well when ready to copy.
Ready?
Right, and
Copy.
Copy. And EV2, what I'll have you do is when you ingress, can you get eyes on the hatch handle mechanism and see if the handle has been stowed in the do not stow window, and report if you can see that?
Check it.
copy, just outside. Thank you.
Just outside the range. And for awareness, I do see a couple of those same points bulging again between 12 and 13.
Copy, your go to address.
No, mostly between 12 and 13 right now.
SpaceX copies at 12. If you can, your go to address those.
Copy and worse.
These numbers being called out represent the location around. Yeah, the location around the circular hatch, just identifying where these bulges are. So Sarah's now reseating that seal.
Not quite able to reach the back one, so we'll proceed with clearing for hatch closures.
Just like that, we're already hearing about hatch closure. It's incredible that these two EVAs, just in 2 blinks of the eyes, are...
ED2 is clear of hatch, please.
2 checks.
On your screen there is SpaceX Core, or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer. On duty tonight is Arthur Berrialt. This is the voice to the crew throughout their operations. Of course, you know, everyone has to sleep, so we have different shifts for Core. But Mike, your time in Dragon.
Driving close. You're good.
Copy. Deploying handle. Applying force. And closing.
Once we get ground station coverage, again, we will be sure to bring you views within the Dragon capsule. But right now, Sarah is closing the forward hatch.
It sounds like we might give the motor a try.
Confirm the hatch is visually indicating closed.
Command hatches verified latched.
Okay, command and EVA hatch closed. EVA hatch closed. All Dracos enabled.
Dragon SpaceX, we see EVA hatch closed and pressure indicates good hatch seal. Stand by for transition to EVA repress 1.
And EV1 copies. Everyone check secondary O2 valve closed.
Copy.
And then support 1, I'm good. EV1 closed.
EV2 closed.
1 closed.
14 closed.
So a couple of real big moments right there. Sarah was able to make sure.
SpaceX, we
We're in
copy.
EVA repress 1.
We copy secondary flow is closed and agree. EVA repress 1.
She was able to make sure that the seals were in good spot. We got the hatch closed. You
Okay,
can
crew,
see
we're out of the half PSI for 8.3.
the pressure starting to tick up.
Just a final confirmation. Everyone confirm secondary O2 valves are closed. EV1's closed.
EV2 closed.
4 closed.
14 closed.
Copy that. And we're through 1 for 8.3.
All right, so each of the crew just closed those secondary O2 valves on their umbilicals. Again, that was primarily for cooling during the spacewalk itself. Suit's still pressurized by that primary. And now we're going to start to see the pressure tick up inside of Dragon. Right after they get the hatch closed, they're able to do kind of an initial pressure check because, again, oxygen, it's an open loop system with these suits still flowing into the cabin. You're able to see positive pressure response showing that the cabin, the hatch was closed and was sealed. We'll still do a leak check on our way kind of back up to our nominal cabin pressure. So we're going to continue ticking up until we're about 8.3 PSI, and then we're going to transition into the second phase of our repress. Really the difference between repress 1, repress 2 is how frequently we're injecting atmosphere, as kind of the repress is also pretty unique with Dragon. We're repressurizing with just nitrogen right now, which is a little bit unique. Obviously, you have nitrogen and oxygen in your atmosphere. With this, we have O2 flowing into the cabin through the suits, so we only need to add nitrogen. So we're able to just basically add a bunch of that to really start getting your pressure up. O2 continues to flow into the cabin through the suits, and we're going to continue pressurizing until we're pretty much right back at our 14.
Fan 1 coming on, medium speed.
Right at about our 14 or so PSI. And we're also looking at what the partial pressure of oxygen is, because we want to make sure the crew takes helmets off and everything, that plenty of oxygen in the cabin. And then we're going to change that injection rate to just help with the mixing. Is microgravity, everything's harder, everything's on hard mode, and you don't just have natural convection. So like, I mean, space station, I think I've heard it a bunch of times, Mike, like you just constant noise of fans.
That's right.
Almost.
Yeah, there's you've got to continually recycle that air, and one, to help get rid of the CO2, right? Because as they're taking in that oxygen, they're breathing out the CO2, and we need to get that out of the system, which is another important reason to have that air constantly circulating.
Yeah. Man, that felt really quick.
It did.
That was really cool to see them outside for the first time. And what they were actually doing out there is a bunch of pretty simple tests as it looked, but like this is just learning how the heck do you move, because like just moving around in microgravity is tough, right?
It is tough.
Dragon SpaceX, we're about 2.5 minutes from Tidra's handover.
PD1 copy. Out of 3.
Yeah, that movement is tough, and there is a big difference just of moving around when you're in your short sleeves like we're inside the capsule, and when you put on that spacesuit, it's much more challenging to move around with that on.
Yeah, and what they were really doing was just kind of like you put your hands on Skywalker, and then you're changing your pitch, you're doing translation up and down and everything. And then the one that I think is kind of cool is max reach, because like just going like that is, not easy.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things I thought was interesting is you heard, I think it was Sarah, talk about the horizontal rail versus the vertical and how much easier that was for her to grab onto or utilize versus the vertical one. So simple things like that, for us, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But out there in the vacuum and in the microgravity environment, it does become a much bigger deal.
And you, Dan and I, we've never been in space, so we certainly appreciate all of your expertise that you'd be able to share with us throughout this morning's operations and contributing your 2 cents. Yeah,
no, thank you. It was great to be here. Just an incredible moment, not only for the Polaris Dawn, for all of SpaceX, and really for humanity, because it's just one of those small steps that's taken us that much closer to being that interplanetary species. So thank you very much for having me around.
Our pleasure. Awesome. You're welcome back anytime.
Excellent. All right.
Good to see you, Hopper.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right. So repress is continuing. We're a little over 4 PSI right now. Again, we're going to keep that going up until we're a little over 8. And then we're going to change our repress rate. We're basically just going to be injecting nitrogen for shorter periods of time. That's just going to help that atmosphere mix as we get the crew kind of back up to their normal cabin atmosphere that they haven't actually been at for the last couple of days, because we started this whole process like right after we got on orbit. Yeah, it was almost like we launched them and gave them 2 seconds to acclimate and enjoy their cute 0G indicator, and immediately stepped into the pre-breathe in order to prepare for today's activity.
and really, like you said, let them acclimate and let their bodies adjust. And, the success of that really was demonstrated today by the fact that we were able to step through all of the steps today without having to take the optional and available breaks to allow the crew members to adjust during. Oh, sorry, I thought we were going to get something there.
Yeah,
that
we're
box
getting
coming in.
The teeters in and out,
Yeah.
so we'll get it back. But
so yeah, just the fact that the all 4 crew members were able to just go right along and didn't have to pause as the option was available. I think it's a testament to the preparation that they did before and during.
You're on check. You do on check.
EDP good.
We're good.
Part 2 good.
just heard a quick check-in from them. So we're going to keep counting the PSI up until we get to about 8. We are going to do another leak check on the way up to our nominal cabin pressure. As you introduce atmosphere, you're introducing temperature changes, not just pressure changes. And so we'll get to a nice, pretty stable point when we're at 8, and then we'll let it hang out there for a couple of minutes. Let the thermals kind of cancel out. That'll take about 5 minutes to do that. This obviously has to be done to make sure we've got a really tight seal with that hatch, as before we let crew get out of their seats, move about the cabin, anything like that. Want to make sure Dragon is fully recovered. We just use Dragon as an airlock.
Yeah. And actually, the info that you were talking about, you see it there on your screen live with that telemetry there in the bottom left and bottom right hand corners. We can see the Dragon capsule and the suit pressures continuing to rise. It is incredible that we've only been in the EVA for 1 hour and 13 minutes. It flew by so quickly.
Cabin pressure approaching 1 psi on PPO2.
I'm sure for Jared and Sarah, it flew by even quicker.
Yeah. We just heard Jared call down. We're coming up on 1 PSI for PPO2. So what we're really tracking before we give the crew the go to get out of their suits is both the actual, like just the straight up, what the absolute pressure is inside, but also what the partial pressure of oxygen is. We want to make sure you don't have a hypoxic environment inside. Basically, you want to get them. They're going to be pretty much right back at the atmosphere that we're walking around in right now before they get their suits off. Our EVA clock's going to continue to count until we hear the call for EVA operations complete from our core Arthur Burial. That's going to come once we are done with the repress operation. We'll see a couple of other things happen with the suits. They'll do kind of a final washout of the pure O2 environment in the suit using nitrox before they get out.
Nitrox being that same air mixture that you have in your scuba tank. If you've got any scuba divers out there, that nitrogen oxygen mixture. Nope, still just air.
They're just going to keep psyching you out. Should hopefully be getting video back from ground stations.
SpaceX, passing 7. Stand by for transition to repress 2 at 8.3.
Okay, copy that, SpaceX. We're following along. Repress 2 at 8.3.
Yeah, so once we transition to repress 2, once we're at about 8.3 PSI, we'll stay there for about 2 minutes. And then once the cabin gets up to 9, we're going to pause the repress, and we're going to do a cabin leak check. This is another kind of critical check. We did the initial one after they closed the hatch, where you're able to do just kind of a, let's look at the pressure. Is it increasing at the rate we expect inside Dragon? Yes, it is. And so we were able to confirm that seals and everything looked good. We're going to do another leak check now that we've got more pressure inside Dragon, just to really make sure that we've got a good seal on that hatch before we finish the operation. Coming up on 8.3. We should be hopefully just about a minute and a half or so away from ground station, so might get those views back inside of Dragon.
Yeah, it would be great to see them post EVA. Now, just like when we were depressurizing the capsule, there was the option to pause.
EVA refresh 2. Cross check 81 good. 81 good.
And yeah, that comms that we're hearing.
At half PSI before we get to the recheck.
Dragon SpaceX with you, monitoring for leak check at 9 PSI.
For the continual checks with all 4 crew members to make sure that everyone is good. If the answer to one of those checks was no, there would be an option in this repress sequence to pause, possibly to reduce the, allow for ear pressure equalization. But again, just like the way that we depressurize, now this repress, it seems to be going really smoothly.
Yeah, we're just about at 9. I'm going to say we're almost there, and then it's going to tick up. But we're going to pause at 9. We're going to do another cabin leak check. So we should hear that momentarily.
All right, we're in EVA refresh 2, stop.
Dragon SpaceX with you in EVA repress 2, stop. Waiting 5 minutes for thermal stabilization.
We're copy that SpaceX. We're tracking. And through for your awareness, we do have positive refresh rate. We're 30 seconds into the recheck.
Like we mentioned earlier, right now this repress is being done with nitrogen. Once we get
your awareness, PPO2 is 1.35, halfway there.
Suits are still flowing that oxygen, and in a few minutes we will begin to flow. We'll do a flush of nitrox into the suits. All right, we got our views back.
There they are.
It's a little sad to see that forward hatch closed again.
It's got to be really hard when they tell you it's time to go back in.
Yeah.
Just one more minute.
Yep. It reminds me of when I was a kid swimming in the pool. You know, time to get out. Just one more minute.
I mean, it speaks to the professionalism for Jared, for Sarah, for the whole crew, really. Like that's got to be, this is something they've been training for years, and it's got to be really hard not to go for those, that extra 30 seconds, but they're true professionals.
Yep. They know there's a timeline.
2 minutes into the 8-minute leak check, cross check. And one good. One good. What you good? PPO2 just passed 1.5.
We're a couple minutes into our leak check. You're seeing the pressure continue to tick up. We've stopped the nitrogen injections, but again, oxygen coming out of essentially a vent line on those suits, and that is why you're going to continue to see the pressure tick up. You heard Jared call out the PPO2. That's going up. That's your partial pressure of oxygen. We're looking for that to get to over about 2.6, a little bit higher. And then our final actual, just ambient pressure inside Dragon's going to be right around 14.4 or so. And I mean, that's a little bit lower than what we're walking around in now. But if you're at a little higher altitude state in the country or something, that's what you might be sitting in right now in your house. And they haven't been at that pressure since they left her.
Yeah.
But after we get all the way up there, we're going to do kind of a final flush of the suits using that nitrox that Kay was talking about. That takes them out of that pure oxygen environment, and that's one of the final steps before we'll hear that call from Arthur of EVA operations complete, and that's when our clock's going to stop. Our spacewalk did start today at 3:12 a.m. Pacific, 10:12 UTC. It's continuing to tick up. Ours was unique. we talked about it a little bit with Mike. There's different rules for every single spacewalk. It's kind of, it's fun, a little challenging sometimes to track all of them. Even on the space station, there's.
We're halfway through the leak check. Still positive research.
We're about halfway through the leak check, so we got about 4-ish minutes left.
We can see the pressure inside Dragon stabilized during this leak check at 9.4. Helps to ensure that that forward hatch is properly sealed and shut. It's very similar to a suit leak check that we do in terms of sustaining a pressure and measuring that pressure over a period of time. Obviously the leak check for the capsule takes a little longer than the individual suit leak checks, but so far so good. A little bit more than halfway through.
Yeah, bigger volume.
Check evaluation period start 3 minutes.
All right, so we hit.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking.
Hit essentially a thermal stabilization. So again, this is the fun. I think it's chemistry. I'm not sure, but like as you're raising the pressure, you're changing the thermal environment inside the cabin. So temperature goes up. Your temperature goes up, your pressure can go up. So you wait for all of that to kind of equalize, and once that gets at a steady state, you can do a real no kidding pressure check on this hatch. And so we're underway with that. That's going to take a couple of minutes, and then we'll hear the results, and then look to resume with the repress. It'll slow down a little bit for the remaining of the repress. Kind of going in reverse. When we did the depress, that initial, a lot of that atmosphere was flowing over, and once we got down low, it started to slow.
Really enjoying these in-cabin views. Everyone.
Dragon SpaceX for awareness. This leak check is looking good so far, but we're still going to wait the full repress.
Yeah, copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking.
Sometimes it seems as though the feed freezes just because everybody's relaxing as the.
We're coming up on 7 minutes into the leak check. It's 9.7. PPO2 is at 2.
Enough. The final minute of our leak check. Reports on the ground, everything's still looking good. For Jared, report down that partial pressure of oxygen right at about 2. Once that gets to about 2.6, we can essentially stop flow of that pure oxygen to the crew suits. Is like 2.6 is right where we want to keep it when we're at our final pressure.
Dragon SpaceX, successful leak check. Stand by for restart or repress.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're following.
Great news there. Successful leak check of the cabin.
Repress 2. All right, crew, we're in EVA repress 2. As a reminder, an EVA repress 2 will complete when either PPO2 reaches 2.62 or cabin reaches 1 atmosphere. Right now, we're coming up on 10 psi for cabin pressure, and PPO2 is 2.2.
It's a really good explainer there from Jared. Again, those are the values we're looking at. We're seeing the PPO2, that partial pressure of oxygen, continue to tick up. Once that gets to about 2.62, we're going to be done flowing that pure oxygen to the suits of the crew. And then eventually we're going to get to 1 atmosphere. It's about 14.4 is our target for today. And then our repress will be complete. So this will go a little bit slower than the initial repress. This could take up to about 20 or 30 minutes, even in some of the times that we simmed it. You don't want to introduce them super quickly to a higher pressure. Anytime you're doing pressure changes, as gradual as you can make it, the better. And that's why we have like the built-in holds that we talked about that the crew can do.
Exactly. These are opportunities for the crew to pause the repress and just allow themselves to come to equilibrium.
Words are hard.
Words are really hard right now.
It is.
And we haven't had to utilize
2.3 PPO2, targeting 2.62. Cabin pressure is at 10.3. If I was a betting man, I'd say we get to the PPO2 threshold first. At that time, O2 will switch to nitrox in the suit.
All right, good news there.
And crew up check, you want to forward your question, please.
Dragon SpaceX, we concur with EV on call.
Continuing to repress the cabin, we had a successful leak check, and you can follow along with the repress along with the data there at the bottom of your screen. As Jared said, we are targeting about 14 PSIA for cabin pressure, or when cabin PPO2, that partial pressure for O2 reaches about 2.6. So we are continuing to progress pretty well.
2.4. Cabin's 10.55.
However, as Dan just said, this portion of the repress could take up to 30 minutes, just so that we're allowing the crew to acclimate along with the capsule.
Really cool day so far. It was awesome to see them, out there going through the test matrix. Like we only got to talk about it a little bit, but just some of the different tests that they were doing while they're out there. This is like fundamental. How do you do a spacewalk? Well, first of all, you use your hands a lot. And how are you going to be able to move around? This is the first time we've ever had the suit in that environment crew. And so they had basically a checklist of like, these are the things you're going to do. It was, use one hand and wave the other one around and see how well you can stabilize yourself. And
then rate that activity on a scale of 1 to 5 and report it back to, we could hear that a little bit in the activity of, okay, I'm doing this thing. Here's the functionality of that test. Yep. Yeah.
And then doing the reach test, doing the up and down. And they did it at the very end. You saw Jared go hands-free for a second. And that was, we had a foot restraint in Skywalker as well. If you've ever watched a spacewalk in the space station, you've seen astronauts in the robotic arm getting flown around with just their feet strapped in. That's a pretty critical tool when you're working in microgravity, because otherwise, you go to swing the hammer and like it swings back at you. So you need something to kind of brace yourself, and a foot restraint can be really important.
Yeah. It was, we also saw the helmet cam getting checked out. That was certainly a highlight for us to see what Jared was seeing, even though at that point I think we were in the orbital night, but it was many amazing views, and it went by so quickly. Both Jared
and we're back.
We got views again.
SpaceX is with you. Reminder to start manual timer on nitrox to suits.
We've got that SpaceX. We're standing by. There it is. Clock started. We're on nitrox pursuit. Cabin TPO2 is 2.6. And cabin atmosphere is 11.11
Well, it might look like the feed is frozen. If you look closely, you can see small micro movements there with fingers and the strap above Anna's shoulder. We, unfortunately, due to ground station coverage, don't have video 100% of the time, even though we wish we did. That would be great. But we can see that Jared and Sarah are not strapped into their seats, of course, because they performed their EVAs or their spacewalks, extravehicular activities, where Anna and Kid remained in their seats, the window seats. So we can see their safety harnesses still strapped in there. At this point in time, we are continuing with the repressurization of the Dragon capsule, Dragon Resilience. We had a successful leak check.
Indication. 4-1 good. 4-2 good.
Commander Jared Isaacman continuing to check in with his three fellow.
Jet secondary O2 valve open. EV1's open.
EV2's open.
4-1 open. 4-1 open.
4-2 open.
Continuing to repressurize the Dragon capsule. We're targeting about 14.1 PSIA for the Dragon pressure, which is the telemetry readout in the far bottom left corner of your screen.
Yep, and along with that, we're also tracking the partial pressure of oxygen. So we did hear that they've stopped the flow of pure O2 to the suits, and they've switched over to nitrox. So again, anything that we're flowing into the suits also gets introduced into the cabin atmosphere. It's an open loop system. It's how you essentially maintain pressure in the suit, since you're just constantly flowing that air in there to wash out any carbon dioxide they're exhaling, to actually function as they're cooling. So we're switching over to nitrox just to make sure we maintain kind of the right balance of nitrogen and oxygen in that cabin before they get to go to take their suits off. So we're already at that for the O2. And so we're on nitrox in the suits now, still injecting kind of the pure nitrogen into the cabin itself. And the teams just keep an eye on the O2 levels as we go throughout, and we can adjust our injections as we need to. So we're just kind of hanging out now, waiting until they get to that 14, a little over 14, and then the call we're going to be listening for is going to be EVA operations complete from Arthur.
We're 4 minutes into the O2 walkout. Cabin TPO2 is 2.9, cabin pressure 12.5.
You can see the Polaris Dawn crew continuing as we continuing to monitor the repress of the Dragon capsule. On the far left side of your screen is Mission Specialist and Medical Officer Anna Menon. To her left, or our right, is Mission Specialist Sarah Gillis. Both of these wonderful women are our fellow SpaceX employees. So incredible to see them in space doing amazing things.
Yeah, and seeing Sarah get to poke her head outside Dragon, that was, I mean, both of them have trained astronauts. They've basically gotten people ready to go do this, and it's got to just be really special to get up there and do it themselves.
Incredibly. And then to the right of Sarah was Commander Jared Isaacman, who was the who performed the first EV operation, or excuse me, EVA operation. So Jared went first, and then Sarah after him. And then on the far right-hand side of the capsule, so not this photo, but the live view inside, was Scott Poteet, prefers to go by his call sign Kid. He had the other window seat. Now, if you tuned into the launch phase of Polaris Dawn, you might recall that Scott...
Period. It's 3 psi. Cabin pressure is 13.3.
Scott is actually our Polaris Dawn pilot, so in order to enable EVA operations, he and Sarah had to swap seats. So Sarah has been keeping the pilot seat warm for Kid.
Yeah, and like we talked about, we only saw Jared and Sarah actually get up and go outside, but all 4 of these crew members did a spacewalk today. All 4 were exposed to the vacuum of space. This is the first time that's ever happened in human history, having 4 people all at the same time.
Yep.
We saw Jared and Sarah go out and do those mobility tests. Anna and Kid, one of their kind of main roles was being the eyes back inside. Very similar if you've ever watched a space station spacewalk, where you let people inside who are able to kind of call out or fly a robotic arm or something. They're just a really important part of the team to make all of this work. Like, no spacewalk doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a vacuum, but like you're never doing it solo. And so they were largely making sure that umbilicals didn't get hung up, and keeping eyes on seals and stuff like that for the crew. So
also keeping an eye on the umbilicals in case if it got wrapped around their foot, and just really acting as the assistant coach while the EVAs were underway.
Right, we're coming up on 14 psi. Again, we're already at the oxygen levels in the cabin that we'd look for, and so now we're just waiting until we get to that final pressure.
Technically, the EVA is still underway.
That's right.
We have not yet heard the call out, EVA complete. That will be coming after we get confirmation that the repress.
We're 9 minutes into the O2 washout, less than 4 minutes remaining. Cabin PPO2 is 3.1. Cabin pressure is coming up on 14.1. I want to review a few things. So when the timer reaches 13 minutes, we're going to shut down the nitrox for the suits. Then we're going to close secondary O2 valves, and then you can use your manual vent valve into place. When your visors, do not disconnect umbilicals. How copy? One's good. Each is good. One good. One good.
Dragon SpaceX, we are less than 2 minutes from a teacher's handover, but copy your call and plan. We concur.
That was Jared just reminding the rest of the crew that when the timer hits 13 minutes, the order of operations. They have that manual valve there. And this is something that we've seen all morning is continual check-ins.
EVA repress is complete, continuing suit washout.
Copy that, SpaceX researching.
Great news there. Confirmation that Dragon repress is now complete.
So right now we're just waiting for that final, we call it the O2 washout. So again, we've been using nitrox instead of the pure oxygen into those suits.
For anyone that has joined recently, unfortunately, you missed most of the fun.
You'll have
I encourage you to rewind. Yep. Go back about an hour. We have had successful completion of both Jared and Sarah's spacewalks. We saw them move through their test matrix and perform the suit mobility tests and the testing of the Skywalker mobility aid located at the top of the Dragon capsule.
1 minute to go.
They moved through it quite quickly, really quite in the blink of an eye. And we've closed the forward hatch. We have repressurized the Dragon capsule, and we're now standing by for really the final operations of the morning. So yeah, unfortunately, if you only recently tuned in, you should definitely rewind and go back. There were some incredible views of the taking place during the EVAs. The crowd that we had in front of Mission Control here in Hawthorne was almost on cue. We're certainly excited, as were we, to see the views of Jared and Sarah emerging from the top of Dragon Resilience. It's been quite a morning, and I can't believe it's already almost 5 a.m. Pacific. We had
there it is. Arming, disconnecting nitrox and suits. And
One in yet?
yep, please. All right, check secondary O2 valves closed. EV1's closed.
TV2's closed.
Support 1 closed.
Support 2 closed.
All right, you're going to manually vent down.
The ringing.
Checkbox. Yes, everybody. Whew. Smell that. Space.
Dragon SpaceX, EV operations complete.
And that's
Copy that, SpaceX. We show the same. Nice job for everyone, and everyone at SpaceX who made it possible. All right. Section 9. Turn all seats, push to talk to manual. Armed.
Execute.
Space.
Wow. If you're just joining us, we just heard the call out that EVA operations are complete, which marks the completion.
EV1, com check on manual push to talk.
Manual push to talk, loud and clear.
All right, that's the crew just switching off from.
We have you loud and clear.
Just switching off from Vox and back on to the push to talk. That silence, really, that's it. That was the first ever commercial spacewalk.
And as you just heard and have been watching over the course of the last couple of hours, it has been quite the saga for SpaceX over the course of this morning between the launch of the AST Space Mobile's 5 Bluebird satellites, the first of its commercial constellation, helping to expand space-based cellular connectivity, and then jumping right into the commercial spacewalk that you just saw begin and now officially in the books for SpaceX and the Polaris program. One of the highlights of this mission, obviously, that is emblazed upon their mission patch, performing the spacewalk, was an important part of building the timeline of the time to get to this mission here in the development of the spacesuits that all 4 crew members donned during this operation: Jared Isaacman, Kid Poteet, Anna Menon, and Sarah Gillis. Of course, a lot of data was gathered here, both visually and experientially, from the crew members, especially Jared and Sarah, being the 2 members of the Inspiration 4 mission that exited the Crew Dragon Resilience and used the Skywalker mobility system attached to the forward hatch. There's still a couple of days left here on the Polaris Dawn mission, so more to come from the adventure of these 4 astronauts before they are ready to splash down off the coast of Florida. Set to happen, fall stays on track over the weekend here. Coming up next in the upcoming flight days, there will likely be some period of rest and, of course, more science and tech demonstrations happening today to close out flight day 3.
Decimal 3, cabin atmosphere is looking pretty good right now, very stable.
Yeah, copy that, SpaceX, and we are ready for your seat rotation.
SpaceX
All
copies,
right,
report when
that is
initiating.
incredible news.
Coming up, flight day 4 will feature an on-orbit demonstration of the Starlink satellite internet technology. And I believe it was Sarah Gillis in the pre-launch press briefing who teased ahead that there would be some extra little additives that are a part of the Starlink demonstration. Didn't give a lot of hints in there, but the mission commit, or the mission director, I should say, Todd Erickson, did say that it may tie into the fundraising effort for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital that this mission is focused on. And then flight day 5, they will be making their preparations for re-entry for splashdown off the coast of Florida. And then flight day 6, they will be splashing down inside Dragon Resilience at one of 7 sites off the coast of Florida. Of course, we'll continue to track the progress of the Polaris Dawn mission and everything that's coming up over the next couple of days before they make their way back to Earth. And sometime after their back down on the ground, there will be a post-mission press briefing, and of course, we will let you know as soon as we have more details on that and bring you that coverage as well. Want to thank all of you who have been with us throughout the duration of the morning. It has been quite an eventful day. Just want to thank a few more folks before we go ahead and close out the morning. A thanks to Shay Calandry saying happy walkies, you guys rock. Thank you. Nelson Reyes, one of our wonderful channel members, the very generous $20 super chat, saying thank you, Will, and the Spaceflight Now team for great coverage. Appreciate that, Nelson. Good to see you this morning. Patty Chichila, marking 2 months as a channel member, wishing the Polaris Dawn good luck. Carl Northeast gifting a Spaceflight Now membership, along with Nelson gifting 5. Appreciate the two of you. Adler's Clan, gifting $4 super chat. Appreciate that. Volodymyr Chepla joining us the channel membership at the pad leader level. M. Teresa marking 5 months as a member, saying this is an awesome first. It'll be great to see them progress to longer walks, and we'll see, yes, what Polaris 2 looks like and how they move the ball forward now that they've had an on-orbit demonstration of those spacesuits. Mira Ben, appreciate you, and Callistelia for gifting a cumulative 11 Spaceflight Now memberships between the two of you. Appreciate you spreading some generosity as we close things out. It is 8:05 a.m. Eastern. We began streaming with the AST mission now, oh gosh, almost 5 hours ago. So I think it's time to send the horses back into the barn, ladies and gentlemen. So on behalf of all of us here at Spaceflight Now, Stephen, Adam, our friends P. Karstens, Chuck and Jen Briggs, helping with the launch support for the AST Space Mobile coverage. Our photographers Adam Bernstein, Michael Kane, mentioned Stephen, worth mentioning again though, as our editor of Spaceflight Now and running the technical operations of the broadcast. Thanks to Callistia Lee, Stephanie B., who now the Aussie Space Girl, helping us hold it down in the live chat on both streams. Appreciate the two of you. Most of all, thanks to you for wherever you are watching from for one or both of our dedicated live streams today. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. It is Thursday now, Thursday the 12th. Hope you all have a good closeout of the week. Hope it is productive and restful, and you get everything done that is on your to-do/bucket list for the next couple of days. Coming up next on our calendar, we're looking at a Starlink launch in the not too distant future, potentially coming up later on tonight if the launch schedule holds. And then we've got another launch from the Cape of another pair of Galileo satellites. It's part of the European Commission's Galileo project, similar to the GPS system here in the United States. Last but not least, there's going to be a media briefing between members of the press and the crew of, I guess, I don't know if they're calling them the former crew of the Boeing Starliner crew flight test, but regardless, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams, going to be talking to folks on the ground coming up on Friday. So that's just tomorrow. So lots to look forward to. It's always a busy time covering the Space Beat. We'd certainly appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button on your way out the digital door and click that like button as well. We appreciate your time and attention. We certainly don't take it for granted. So thanks for stopping by for however long you happen to enjoy the live coverage. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Once again, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.